Hey guys, tonight we're slipping through the massive, blue-glazed gates of ancient Babylon, a city pulsing with life, myths, and a little bit of danger. Picture yourself standing on a dusty road, the sun baking your shoulders, while merchants shout and donkeys bray in the distance. The air smells of baked clay and spices, and those towering walls, studded with lions and dragons, make you feel small. Babylon's a place of wonders, sure, but let's be real. You probably won't survive a week here without a good haggle or a prayer to the right God. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not just anywhere. You're in Babylon, around 1800 BCE, under King Hammurabi's reign, when this city was the heart of Mesopotamia. Those gates you're passing through, they're the Ishtar Gate, or at least an early version, wide enough for chariots and gleaming with lapis lazuli tiles. You dodge a cart piled with barley, nearly tripping over a stray goat. The streets are a maze of mud brick walls, some painted with wild patterns, others crumbling under the Euphrates' humid breath. People swarm around you, traders in fringed robes, kids chasing clay balls, and priests muttering prayers. It's loud, it's chaotic, and it's alive. Babylon's no fairy tale, though. You're sweating through your tunic, and the water from that clay jug tastes like river silt. Sanitation? Let's just say you're sidestepping some questionable puddles. Historians still argue whether Babylon's population hit 100,000 back then, but it feels like a million as you're jostled along. One quirky tidbit: they used crocodile dung as a sunscreen. Yep, you're smearing that on your face if you want to avoid a sunburn. Good luck with the smell. You turn a corner, and there's the Euphrates River, slicing the city like a silver vein. Boats bob along, loaded with reeds and grain. You're tempted to jump in, but the current's strong, and you've heard rumors of river snakes. Instead, you follow the crowd toward the processional way, a grand street lined with palm trees. It's like Babylon's red carpet, leading to temples and palaces. You crane your neck at the ziggurat in the distance, a stepped pyramid that's basically a stairway to the gods. Spoiler, you're not invited up there. Everywhere you look, there's a mix of grit and glory. A woman sells flatbreads from a stall, swatting flies with a reed fan. A man with a braided beard haggles over a copper bracelet, tossing insults like they're free. You're starting to get the rhythm of this place. Hustle or get hustled. Oh, and if you're wondering about Wi-Fi, the closest thing is a clay tablet with cuneiform scratches. Better learn to read it fast. As you weave through the crowd, you notice guards in leather armor, their bronze spears glinting. They're watching everyone, including you. Babylon's powerful, but it's paranoid too. Enemies like the Assyrians are always lurking. You're just a visitor, but you feel the weight of their stares. Maybe it's time to find a quieter spot, like a shady courtyard or a tavern with date wine. Just don't drink too much. You've got a long walk ahead, and those streets don't get safer at night. You're still catching your breath from Babylon's chaotic streets. But now you're deeper in, where the city's bones, its mud brick homes and soaring ziggurats, shape every step. The sun's relentless, baking the clay walls around you until they smell like overdone pottery. Your sandals slap against packed dirt, kicking up dust that sticks to your sweaty shins. This is Babylon's heartbeat, a sprawl of gritty, grounded life, stacked beneath monuments that scream ambition. You're about to see how the ordinary and the divine live side by side. And spoiler, neither smells great. You're weaving through a residential alley, so narrow your shoulders, nearly brush the walls. These houses are mud brick, flat-roofed, and crammed together like gossiping neighbors. You peek through an open doorway. A family's eating barley porridge on woven mats, their oil lamp flickering. It's cozy, but cramped. Think studio apartment, but with scorpions. Most Babylonians live like this, piling generations into one home. Roofs double as sleeping spots when the nights cool off, and you're already dreaming of a breeze up there. But don't get comfy. A quirky tidbit says some folks used fish oil to ward off bugs. You're slathering that on tonight, aren't you? Now, you're back on a wider street, and the ziggurat looms closer. Etemenanki, dedicated to Marduk, Babylon's top god. It's a mainstream fact that this massive stepped pyramid, maybe 300 feet tall, was the city's spiritual and political flex. You're awestruck, but also dodging donkey dung to get a better view. Each level's painted blue, red, gold, glistening under the sun. Priests climb its stairs, hauling offerings, while you're stuck below with the sweaty masses. Historians still argue whether Etemenanki inspired the Tower of Babel myth, but standing here, you get why people thought it touched the sky. You wander toward the palace district, where kings like Hammurabi lived. The walls here are thicker, decorated with glazed tiles of lions and mythical beasts. You're not getting inside. Guards with curled beards and bad attitudes make sure of that. But you can imagine the courtyards, fountains, date palms, maybe a pet monkey or two. Contrast that with the alley you just left, where kids share one clay cup of water. Babylon's a city of extremes, and you're walking the line between them. A light breeze carries the scent of burning sesame oil from a nearby shrine. You follow it, passing a potter shaping clay on a wheel. He's muttering about taxes. Some things never change. You chuckle, but quietly. You don't want trouble. The shrine's small, just a niche with a clay Marduk statue. But people kneel, whispering prayers. You're tempted to join, if only for the shade. Instead, you notice a wall carving, a winged bull with a human face. Creepy, but kind of cool, like Babylon's version of a superhero poster. As you loop back toward the city's heart, you're struck by the engineering. Canals from the Euphrates snake through, watering gardens and cooling the air. Bridges arch over them, creaking under cart traffic. It's impressive, but not perfect. Leaky canal banks flood streets, and you're tiptoeing around mud. Remember that fish oil bug repellent? You're wishing you'd packed some modern DEET instead. Babylon's majesty is real, but so is its mess. You're starting to respect the folks who thrive here, balancing devotion and survival in a city that never sleeps. You're still in Babylon's dusty sprawl, but now the weight of law presses down like the midday heat. You're standing in a crowded courtyard where a judge in a fringed robe holds court under a tamarisk tree. Hammurabi's Code, those 282 laws carved on a black stone pillar, rules every move here. You're about to see justice, Babylonian style, and it's not exactly a courtroom drama with air conditioning. One wrong step, and you're in deep, so keep your wits sharp. The crowd's buzzing as a merchant accuses a farmer of stealing his ox. You're close enough to smell the garlic on their breaths. The judge, stroking his oiled beard, cites a law. If a man steals an ox, he repays sevenfold. That's a mainstream fact. Hammurabi's Code, etched around 1754 BCE, was one of the first written legal systems, meant to unify Babylon's chaos. The farmer's sweating, pleading poverty, but the judge isn't swayed. You wince as the penalty's declared. He'll lose a hand if he can't pay. Justice here is swift, and you're glad you're just watching. You slip away, heart pounding, but curiosity pulls you to a public square where the code's pillar stands. It's taller than you, gleaming basalt, covered in cuneiform. You can't read it, but kids nearby recite bits like it's a school chant, a quirky tidbit. One law says if a house collapses and kills someone, the builder's executed. Talk about high-stakes architecture. You're suddenly grateful for modern building permits. Historians still argue whether the code was enforced literally or more as a guideline, but that farmer's fate makes you think it's no joke. Wandering on, you pass a tavern where a woman's shouting about her cheating husband. She's threatening to drag him to court. Hammurabi's laws cover marriage too. Adultery could mean drowning for both parties, though you overhear a man whisper that bribes sometimes soften verdicts. You raise an eyebrow. Sounds like Babylon's got its own version of courtroom loopholes. You're tempted to eavesdrop, but a guard's eyeing you, so you keep moving. The streets grow quieter as you near a scribal school. Young boys sit cross-legged, scratching clay tablets. They're learning the code, among other things, because literacy's power here. You're impressed, but also intimidated. Imagine memorizing laws in a script that looks like bird tracks. A stray dog sniffs your sandals, and you shoo it away, chuckling at the thought of a law for stray mutts. Maybe there is one. Babylon's got rules for everything. As you loop back toward the courtyard, you notice a woman selling amulets shaped like tiny stone pillars. She claims they're mini Hammurabi codes. Good luck for dodging trouble. You're skeptical, but buy one anyway. It's only a few barley grains, and you're not taking chances. The weight of law feels heavier now, like the humid air. You're starting to see how Babylonians live, with this code looming over them, a mix of fear and pride. It's order, but at a cost. Remember that fish oil from the rooftops? You're wishing you had an amulet for that smell instead. You're weaving through Babylon's heart now, where the marketplace hums like a living beast. The air's thick with the scent of roasted sesame, overripe figs, and sweat-soaked wool. Stalls line the dusty square, their reed awnings flapping in the breeze. Merchants shout over each other, hawking everything from barley to bronze knives, and you're caught in the chaos, haggling to survive. This is Babylon's economic pulse, where wealth flows like the Euphrates, and you'd better keep up or get fleeced. You pause at a stall piled with dates, their sticky sweetness tempting you. The vendor, a woman with coal-lined eyes, sizes you up. 3 shekels for a handful, she says, smirking. You counter with 1, and she laughs like you've insulted her ancestors. A mainstream fact, Babylon was a trade hub, connecting Mesopotamia to distant lands like India and Egypt, with goods like lapis lazuli and cedar wood passing through. You're holding a clay token, your money, but it's barley-based credit. Think ancient Venmo, but heavier. You settle on 2 shekels, feeling mildly victorious, though her grin says she still won. Nearby, a man unloads amphorae of olive oil, cursing a cracked one. You dodge the spill, noticing a quirky tidbit. Some traders use tamarind paste to freshen old oil. Buyer beware, right? You're learning fast. Trust no one's pitch. Historians still argue whether Babylon's markets were tightly regulated or a free-for-all, but the chaos around you leans toward the latter. A kid darts past, swiping a flatbread, and the baker's too busy to notice. You're tempted to grab a freebie too, but a guard's watching, his spear glinting. You move on, passing stalls with dyed textiles, reds and purples that scream wealth. A woman drapes a shawl over her shoulders, preening, while her husband counts out silver rings. You're jealous but broke, so you keep walking. The crowd's a mix: farmers in rough tunics, merchants with gold earrings, even a few foreigners speaking tongues you don't know. It's like a Mesopotamian melting pot, and you're just trying not to trip over a stray chicken. A sudden shout draws you to a livestock pen. Goats bleat as a herder barters with a butcher. You overhear talk of drought driving prices up. Bad news for everyone. You're starting to feel the market's rhythm. Loud, cutthroat, alive. A juggler tosses clay pots for laughs, and you chuckle when one smashes. Better luck next time, you mutter, earning a glare. There's a tavern nearby, its date wine aroma calling, but you're saving your tokens for a meal. Maybe, as you circle back, you spot a scribe tallying a merchant's goods on a clay tablet. Numbers, weights, debts. Babylon's bureaucracy never sleeps. You're impressed, but also paranoid. What if you owe someone and don't know it? Remember that amulet from the Law Square. You're clutching it now, hoping it wards off bad deals. The market's thrilling, but exhausting. You're ready for shade, maybe a quiet corner, to eat those overpriced dates. Babylon's wealth is dazzling, but it's a hustle you're barely surviving. You're slipping away from the marketplace's clamor. Your pouch lighter, but your stomach growling for those dates you haggled over. Now, the air shifts. Incense and chants replace the merchant's shouts. You're nearing a temple, its mud brick walls adorned with turquoise tiles that shimmer in the fading light. Babylon's gods, especially Marduk, demand worship, and you're about to witness the rituals that keep this city's divine favor. It's intense, it's sacred, and you're hoping you don't accidentally offend a priest. You step into the temple courtyard, where a massive statue of Marduk, dragon-scaled and golden, looms over a stone altar. Priests in white robes burn myrrh, the smoke curling like a lazy snake. A mainstream fact: Marduk was Babylon's patron god, his cult central to the city's identity, especially during Hammurabi's reign. You're watching a procession. Men and women offer barley, oil, even a bleeding lamb. The crowd hums prayers, and you mimic their bowed heads, feeling like an imposter. One wrong move, and you're the outsider they glare at. A priest pours wine onto the altar, muttering about omens. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Babylonians read sheep livers to predict the future, believing gods sent messages through squiggly veins. You're side-eyeing the lamb, wondering if its liver's next. Gross, but you're curious. Historians still argue whether these rituals were purely spiritual or political tools to control the masses. but the fervor around you feels real. A woman beside you weeps, clutching a clay amulet. You're not sure if it's faith or fear, but it's heavy. You shuffle closer, the incense making your eyes water. The priests chant louder, and a drumbeat echoes off the walls. It's hypnotic, but also unnerving, like you're supposed to feel something divine, but mostly feel small. You notice offerings piled high, figs, honey, even a child's tiny sandal. You're wondering about that story when a priest's gaze locks onto you. "Offer something," he says, pointing to your pouch. You toss in a date, hoping it's enough. He doesn't blink. Yikes. Stepping back, you spot a smaller shrine nearby, dedicated to Ishtar, goddess of love and war. A young man kneels, whispering about a girl. You smirk. Some things never change. But then you see a sword laid before her statue, stained with what you hope is rust. Love and war, indeed. You're starting to get why Babylonians pray so hard. Their gods seem demanding. A stray cat slinks by, and you joke to yourself, it's probably a sacred animal. Better not kick it. As you leave the temple, the chants fade, but the weight of devotion lingers. You pass a family burning a clay tablet inscribed with prayers, another offering, maybe for a sick kid. You're moved, but also glad to breathe fresh air again. Remember that marketplace hustle? It feels light compared to this spiritual intensity. Your amulet's still in your pocket, and you're half tempted to pray to Marduk yourself, just in case. Babylon's gods don't mess around, and neither does this city's faith. You're slipping out of the temple's heavy incense cloud, the chants still echoing in your ears, when you stumble into a quieter corner of Babylon. The air's cooler here, tinged with the earthy scent of wet clay. You're standing outside a scribal school, where boys hunch over tablets, scratching wedge-shaped marks under a teacher's stern gaze. This is where Babylon's history, laws, and stories are carved into eternity. Cuneiform, the world's first writing system. You're about to dive into the world of scribes, and trust me, it's less dusty than it sounds. You peek inside the open courtyard. The boys, some barely 10, press styluses into soft clay, their fingers smudged. A mainstream fact, cuneiform, developed by the Sumerians and perfected in Babylon, recorded everything from trade deals to epic poems like Gilgamesh. You're watching a kid copy a list of grain prices, his tongue sticking out in focus. It's tedious, but these tablets are Babylon's memory. Without them, Hammurabi's code or Marduk's hymns would be dust. You're impressed, but also glad you're not stuck memorizing 600 signs. The teacher, a bearded man with a reed whip, corrects a boy's shaky wedge. Ouch, that's motivation. Here's a quirky tidbit. Scribes sometimes hid cheeky notes in tablets, like "I'm tired" or "This clay's too wet." You're grinning, imagining a 4,000-year-old eye roll. Historians still argue whether scribes were elite or just overworked bureaucrats, but the precision here screams discipline. You're tempted to try scratching a tablet yourself, but one glare from the teacher says, "Don't even think about it." You wander to a nearby archive, a dim room stacked with tablets. Think ancient library, but heavier. A scribe sorts them, muttering about a missing tax record. You're in awe of the organization, but also sneezing from the dust. Each tablet's a snapshot, a marriage contract, a beer recipe, even a complaint about noisy neighbors. You chuckle. Babylonians invented whining in writing. Outside, a merchant haggles over a scribe's fee for a trade letter. Literacy's power, but it comes with a price tag. The sun's dipping, casting shadows over the school. You notice a girl, rare among the boys, practicing cuneiform in a corner. Women scribes existed, but they're like unicorns, special and scarce. You give her a mental high five, dodging the teacher's whip as you slip out. The street's alive again, kids kicking a leather ball, unaware their worlds preserved by those clay scratches. You're starting to see Babylon's layers. Gods, laws, now words, all holding this city together. Remember that date you offered Marduk? You're wishing you'd kept it to bribe a scribe for a lesson. Cuneiform's tough, but it's Babylon's backbone, turning fleeting lives into stories that outlast empires. You're itching to explore more. Maybe find a tavern to process this. But the city's pulling you forward, its pulse too strong to resist. You're stepping away from the scribal school's dusty tablets, your head buzzing with cuneiform's sharp wedges. The evening air's cooler now, carrying the aroma of grilled fish and fresh-baked bread from nearby homes. You're drawn to a lively courtyard where Babylonians gather for a feast, their laughter mingling with the clink of clay cups. But beneath the celebration, there's a shadow. Famine's always lurking, and you're about to taste both the bounty and the fear that define life here. Grab a seat, but don't eat too fast. Resources are trickier than they seem. You're handed a warm flatbread, its edges charred, and a bowl of lentil stew thick with onions. The feast is a community affair, maybe celebrating a harvest or a wedding. A mainstream fact: Babylon's agriculture, fed by Euphrates canals, produced barley, dates, and sesame, supporting a dense population. You take a bite, savoring the nutty bread, but notice some guests eyeing their portions nervously. Food's plentiful tonight, yet the memory of lean years hangs heavy. You're grateful for the stew, but you're not relaxing yet. A man strums a lyre, singing about fertile fields, while kids chase each other around date palms. You're charmed, but then overhear a woman whisper about last year's drought when barley stores ran dry. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Babylonians ate locusts during shortages, roasting them with salt. You're glancing at your stew, hoping it's just lentils. Historians still argue whether famines were frequent or exaggerated in records, but the tight grips on clay cups around you suggest they're no myth. You're starting to feel the city's pulse. Abundance today, anxiety tomorrow. You move to a table where a merchant offers you date wine, sweet but strong. To good harvests, he toasts, though his eyes scan the sky, maybe for rain clouds. You sip, chuckling at the thought of locust snacks, better than crocodile dung sunscreen, right? The crowd's lively, but you notice thinner faces, folks who maybe skipped meals to be here. Babylon's feasts are a flex, but they mask truth. The Euphrates gives, and it takes. A canal breach or bad harvest could starve half the city. A storyteller interrupts, spinning a tale of a farmer who pleased the gods and saved his crops. You're half listening, distracted by a kid sneaking an extra fig. Good for him, you think, but you're also counting your own bites. The lyre player switches to a slower tune, and the mood softens. You're full, but the talk of drought lingers like a bad aftertaste. A woman nearby wraps leftover bread in a cloth, her hands quick, like she's hiding gold. Survival's a habit here. As you leave the courtyard, the stars are out, and the air's thick with smoke from cooking fires. You're stuffed, but uneasy. Babylon's feasts are a gamble against nature's whims. Remember that amulet from the law square? You're clutching it now, half wishing it could ward off hunger. The city's alive with celebration, but its underbelly, scarcity's threat, never sleeps. You're ready for a quieter path, maybe to clear your head before Babylon's next surprise. You're leaving the feast's warmth behind. The taste of date wine still sweet on your tongue, but the night air carries a new edge, metal and sweat. You're nearing Babylon's military quarter, where torchlight flickers on bronze spears and mud brick barracks. Warriors train here, guarding the city's glory against threats lurking beyond the walls. You're about to march alongside them, feeling the weight of their armor and the paranoia that keeps Babylon mighty. Stay sharp. This isn't a place for daydreams. You step into a training yard where soldiers spar with wooden swords, their grunts echoing off the walls. Dust swirls around their sandaled feet, and you're close enough to smell the leather of their armor. A mainstream fact: Babylon's army, under kings like Hammurabi, was a disciplined force, using chariots and archers to dominate Mesopotamia. You're watching a captain bark orders, his beard flecked with sweat, as recruits practice shield walls. It's impressive, but you're glad you're not holding a spear. Those guys look exhausted. A soldier polishes his bronze helmet, muttering about Assyrian raiders. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some warriors wore amulets shaped like tiny axes, believing they channeled divine strength. You're eyeing your own amulet, wondering if it's got any combat perks. Historians still argue whether Babylon's military relied more on strategy or sheer numbers, but the tension here screams preparation. You're starting to feel the city's pulse. Glory's worth defending, but at a cost. A stray dog barks, and you jump, earning a smirk from a nearby guard. You follow a patrol toward the city walls, their torches casting shadows like prowling beasts. The walls are massive, thick enough to race chariots on top. Think ancient freeway, but with better views. You're tempted to climb up, but a guard's glare says otherwise. Instead, you overhear talk of a recent skirmish. Blood was spilled, and not everyone came back. You're swallowing hard, realizing peace is fragile here. A kid runs by, waving a stick like a sword, and you chuckle. Future warrior? Or just big dreams? The patrol loops past a shrine to Nergal, war god, where soldiers leave clay offerings. You're curious, but keep your distance. The air feels heavy, like the gods are watching. A captain inspects a chariot, its wheels creaking, and you're struck by the engineering. Babylon's not just muscle, it's brains too. But then you notice a limping soldier, his arm bandaged. Glory's shiny, but it's brutal. You're joking to yourself that your biggest battle is dodging marketplace scams, but the mood here's too grim for laughs. As you slip away, the barracks fade into the night, but the clank of spears lingers. You're starting to get why Babylon's so paranoid. Enemies are real, and these warriors are the shield. Remember that locust-eating famine talk? You're thinking hunger's not the only threat. Your amulet's still in your pocket, and you're half tempted to offer it to Nergal, just in case. The city's glory is dazzling, but it's forged in sweat and blood. You're ready for a breather, maybe a story to lighten the mood. You're slipping away from the military quarter, the clank of spears fading as Babylon's night wraps around you like a soft blanket. The air's cooler now, scented with date palms and distant cooking fires. You find yourself in a quiet courtyard where a storyteller sits under a flickering oil lamp, his voice weaving tales that hold a small crowd spellbound. This is where Babylon's myths come alive, fueling dreams under starry skies. You're about to lose yourself in stories of gods and heroes, but keep one ear open. Myths here carry truths and warnings. You settle on a woven mat, the ground still warm from the day's heat. The storyteller, an old man with a braided beard, describes Gilgamesh, the epic hero who wrestled monsters and chased immortality. a mainstream fact, the Epic of Gilgamesh, written on cuneiform tablets, is one of the oldest stories known, born in Mesopotamia and cherished in Babylon. His words paint a forest so vivid you swear you smell cedar. The crowd leans in, kids wide-eyed, and you're hooked, though your modern brain's whispering, this guy's basically an ancient superhero. He shifts to a tale of Enki, the crafty water god, outsmarting a rival with a clay trick. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Babylonians believe stars were God's writing, spelling out fates. You're glancing at the sky, half expecting a cosmic tweet. Historians still argue whether myths like these were religious texts or just entertainment, but the way the crowd sighs feels spiritual. You're starting to see how stories glue Babylon together, giving meaning to its chaos. A kid nearby whispers, "Is Gilgamesh real?" And you smirk. Same, kid. The storyteller's voice dips, now spinning a darker myth about Tiamat, the chaos dragon slain by Marduk. It's intense, and you're reminded of the temple's golden statue. The crowd murmurs prayers, and you're clutching your amulet, just in case Tiamat's listening. A breeze stirs, rustling palm fronds, and you joke to yourself that it's her ghost. Not funny, though. These stories feel alive, like they're watching you back. A woman tosses a date pit into the fire, muttering about bad omens. Superstitious, but you're not judging. He wraps up with a lighter tale. A farmer who tricks a demon with a barley bribe. The crowd laughs, and you're chuckling too, though you're low on barley yourself. Remember that marketplace haggle? You're wishing you'd saved a few dates for demon bribes. The lamp's oil burns low, and the crowd thins, kids yawning. You're struck by how these myths, heroic, scary, funny, carry Babylon's soul, explaining gods, laws, even droughts. It's like a bedtime story, but for a whole civilization. As you stand, stretching, the stars seem brighter, each one a god's scribble. The storyteller's packing up, but his voice lingers, weaving through your thoughts. Babylon's myths aren't just tales, they're survival tools, making sense of a wild world. You're ready to wander on, maybe chase your own epic, but the city's whispers are pulling you toward its final truths. You're drifting from the storyteller's courtyard, the myths of Gilgamesh and Tiamat, still swirling in your mind like desert dust. Babylon's streets are quieter now, the moon casting silver over mud brick walls. You're nearing the city's edge, where the Euphrates glints and the ziggurat's silhouette looms like a sleeping giant. This is your final stop, a moment to reflect on Babylon's legacy, its wonders, struggles, and the shadow it casts across time. You're about to feel the weight of a city that shaped history, even as it fades into whispers. You pause by the riverbank, the water lapping softly at reeds. The city behind you hums, distant laughter, a donkey's bray, but it feels fragile, like a dream you might forget. A mainstream fact: Babylon, at its peak under Hammurabi and later Nebuchadnezzar II, was a cultural and political titan, its laws and architecture influencing civilizations for centuries. You're tracing the ziggurat's outline with your eyes, knowing its bricks will crumble, yet its idea, human ambition reaching for the divine, lives on in every skyscraper today. A quirky tidbit: some Babylonians buried clay figurines under their homes for luck, hoping to anchor their lives to this fleeting place. You're kicking at the dirt, half tempted to dig for one, but the river's current warns you. Nothing lasts forever. Historians still argue whether Babylon's decline was due to invasions, environmental shifts, or internal rot. But standing here, you feel its pulse slowing. The Ishtar Gate, those lion tiles, will outlast the people who built them, but even they'll fade under sand and time. You wander closer to the city wall, its bulk a reminder of the warriors you saw, sweating for glory. A guard patrols above, his torch a lonely star. You're thinking of the marketplace, the scribes, the feasts, each a thread in Babylon's tapestry, now unraveling in your mind. Remember that amulet you've been clutching? It's warm in your pocket, a tiny piece of this world you'll carry forward. You joke to yourself that it's your ticket back, but the truth is heavier. Babylon's gone, yet it's everywhere. In our laws, stories, even our hustle. The stars overhead feel like the gods' final scribbles, the ones the storyteller swore held fates. You're not sure you believe it, but you're whispering a quiet thanks to Marduk, just in case. The city's legacy isn't just ziggurats or codes. It's the stubborn, human drive to build, to dream, to survive. You're starting to see your own world in Babylon's mirror. Same chaos, same hopes, just with better plumbing. As you turn back, the city blurs, its edges softening like a memory. Your steps slow, the Euphrates murmur lulling you. The air's gentle now, wrapping you in a hush that feels like home. The night's grown still, and you're sinking deeper into this moment, where Babylon's glow lingers like a fading ember. Let the river's soft ripple carry away the marketplace's clamor, the weight of Hammurabi's laws, the gods' heavy stares. You're safe here, wrapped in the quiet of a city that dreamed big and burned bright. Picture the ziggurat one last time, its steps climbing toward stars that still shine for you tonight. Your eyelids are heavy, the world softening at its edges. Let Babylon slip into your dreams, a whisper of mud brick and myth to cradle you until morning. Sleep now, deeply, and let the ancient world hold you close.